Alright guys, I'm Emray, and we're here for a very, very special Hollow Knight run today, featuring Taco TV and the mossbag. So we're going to be covering a lot of the lore in Hollow Knight. As most of you probably know, this game has a lot of really deep lore, and a lot of the times in speedrun we don't get to see most of that lore. So we're going to get to see like pretty much as much lore as we can pack into a 2-hour run as possible. If you guys want to say anything before we get started.
We will not be going over everything, because if we wanted to do that, we would literally need to sit here for a day. But we'll try our best to give you guys as much information as possible.
Yeah, I've never heard of this game. It sounds interesting. What is it about exactly?
Something about Void and fist fighting the sun, I think.
Oh yeah, tale as old as time.
All right, so we can go ahead and get started in 3, 2, 1, go. So the game starts out with a bunch of really deep cutscenes. It starts out with this beautiful poem, and then it tries to kind of explain what's going on in Hollownest and why we're here. This game doesn't really like tell you the lore at all. You really have to go looking for it.
Yeah, so it's very Dark Souls-like in that you have to look at descriptions of things, you have to talk to characters, and you have to read tablets to understand anything that's going on. So it's like a fun little Easter egg hunt, but it's the whole game. So that first little poem, it's called The Elegy for Hallownest, and it gives us a vague idea of what's going on in the kingdom. And it goes, "In wilds beyond they speak your name with reverence and regret, for none could tame our savage souls, yet you the challenge met. Under palest watch, you taught we changed, based instincts were redeemed, a world you gave to bug and beast as they had never dreamed." And what that basically means is that there was this person who created this kingdom of Hallownest, and they basically help these bugs who live here to live better lives and more full lives. And that poem basically sets up what Hallownest is and why it's important in this world. Hallownest being the kingdom that we are entering when we start the game.
Can I just say it's really impressive to me that you have that poem actually memorized?
Yeah, I've read it a few times, so...
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, like, I can't even remember basic math, and mossbag is over there being, like, an entire Hallownest encyclopedia.
Yeah, it's important. And I also talked over a whole bunch of other cutscenes that were important. But we saw a mysterious figure, and they were chained up for some reason. And then we saw a light appear to come out of them, and then they let out a roar. And then we saw our main character arrive in Hallownest, setting off the game. So
nice. So basically, Taco and mossbag are going to be covering a lot of the lore. I'm going to be covering a lot of the speedrun stuff. The softball that I just got there was an RNG softball, so that was really good RNG. And these tablets just kind of explain, like the first one teaches you how to heal, and then the second one kind of tells you, heck, I forgot.
What's interesting about these tablets is they say higher beings. These words are for you alone. And right there, we could already go down a deep rabbit hole of what exactly are higher beings. There's a lot of different theories, but basically higher beings are non-ordinary bugs, right? So gods of Hallownest, like the Pale King, who was the person who built the kingdom, his wife, the White Lady, the Radiance, or say Un. But it wouldn't make much sense for the Pale King to just write these tablets for himself, his wife, his arch nemesis, or some random god who probably already knows all this stuff already. So it is likely that he wrote these tablets for the vessels, which we are playing as one of the vessels, the Knight, to basically teach them how they can maneuver around the world better. And one of them also said, focus your soul, which is one very important thing that is exclusive to a few bugs, including us.
Kind of unfortunate there in that arena. That double spike kill is supposed to be really consistent, and I messed it up pretty bad.
And right now we're walking through the Forgotten Crossroads. It appears to have been basically some trade routes that the bugs of this kingdom would have used, and it now lies in ruin after an infection has come through and ruined everything. And we are entering this kingdom an age after all of this has happened, and the infection seems to be springing to life once again. And all sorts of any civilization that was here has now been turned into zombies or destroyed.
What's also interesting is that they are called the Forgotten Crossroads, yet you can see a lot of bugs still roaming around in there, so they're clearly not forgotten. Also, one person that's sitting atop the Forgotten Crossroads in Dirtmouth is Elderbug, and he knows all about this. He's seen many wanderers go down into these depths below, and very few of them have returned. So he's kind of made a deal with himself to never ever go down there, which might actually be a smart thing, because it is quite dangerous, as we can see here, as the false knight drops down onto us and ambushes us.
Yep, the false knight being a very important character in the world of Hallownest. What's inside of it, the armor, is actually a maggot who has stolen the armor of a knight who was a part of the Five Great Knights, a group of very powerful knights who basically protected Hallownest. But one of the knights was sleeping, and this maggot basically did something and took their armor and probably killed them so that they could protect their maggot friends. And now we get to kill them.
Yeah, and it's quite sad because later on in the second fight against this guy, we actually have Dreamnail dialogue of him thinking, oh wow, even with this armor, I thought I was strong enough to protect my friends, but I couldn't even do that, and then he just dies.
Feels really bad, man.
Yeah.
I'll go back into the main room.
Oh, wait, what?
Stay in that room. Okay, you left.
Oh, yeah, you might be a little bit behind. Sorry.
Yeah, so the mace that he uses to attack you is actually a bug. And if you wait long enough, the bug will walk away. And if you have the Dream Nail, which is basically a weapon that allows you to read the thoughts of bugs and enemies, he'll say, "Freedom!"
I didn't know that, actually. I didn't know you could dream nail him.
He just gets up and scuttles away if you wait long enough.
Usually you don't have the Dreamnail at this point of the game, so I also didn't know about this.
It is possible. What you would have to do is get like a crazy amount of geo, save Sly, go through Crystal Peaks, and then drop down to Dreamnail from there. That's something that you really only see in Rando. But that's because Lantern is a randomized progression item in Rando.
That seems awfully tedious.
Yes.
Just to get one line of dialogue.
Well, the lore hunters be like they are.
Or you can just rip the text files from in the game.
Well, see, that's the easy way. Don't you actually want to see it yourself with your eyeballs?
Doesn't really matter. So where we are now is the Ancestral Mound, where we get a spell ability. And so there is a magic system in Hollow Knight. It basically is this thing called Soul, which you collect when you hit enemies. And you can use that to heal yourself using focus, or you can cast spirits that can deal damage to other enemies. So it's a very shamanistic, like shamanism type of magic system.
Can I just say something real quick? At
Yeah.
that ledge, whenever you saw me falling with my inventory open, that's actually a physics frame perfect trick. So it's actually very difficult to do on current patch. There's a couple that I'll be going for, but that's like basically what it looks like. That was really bad Grezzer RNG. They were on top of me.
Ooh. Physics frame perfect means you basically have to hit a 1 out of 50 frames, right?
Yes.
In 1 second. So pretty gosh darn tight.
Yeah, it's pretty lucky. Not even impressive, but also lucky to get it because frames themselves, like for example, I'm running this game at 300 to 400 FPS right now. That's what I have in Green Path. And then physics frames are 1 out of 50 always. So they also have to overlap with your normal frame rate in order to actually pull it off. So it is kind of an RNG trick.
And now we're making our way into Green Path, which is quite overgrown, as you see. It was created from the god Un, who basically dreamed up this entire land. Like, he just made all of the fauna, flora up, and just like that, it was there, I guess. And now she is sitting in her cave.
Got it. That right there was called a fireball skip. It skips the entire bottom half of Green Path.
Nice.
And here's our first Green Path lore tablet.
Nice.
You wanted to
Yeah, I
read
remember
it?
you had a damage boost in earlier runs, right?
Yeah, there's a different backup strat you can do with the squid where you pogo him. But luckily I didn't have to do that. It's like 8 seconds slower or so.
As this lore tablet was saying, Hidden Un, we need you now. So Un, for some reason, isn't communicating with the bugs of Green Path anymore. And it seems like because Un is weakened or doesn't think about the land anymore, it is quite overgrown recently.
Yeah, it appears that Un is calling to her children to return back to the dream in which they came from like they want, but for some reason they can't hear her. Probably because of this infection that is influencing all of these bugs. So that tablet we saw was explaining how all of Green Path was created by Un from a dream. Which would explain why we have such greenery deep underground.
Also, we are letting Zote die, because heck Zote, all my homies hate Zote.
Oh. He's really important, though. He has the most lines of lore in the entire game.
Does he? Does he? Yep. Or are you lying to me?
No, it's actually... Is it like 2,600 words? Lines? What was it, mossbag?
I think it's 2,600.
Oh my
I don't think
goodness.
that's been surpassed. But that's mainly because he has 57 precepts, which are rules he has about how you should live a good life or how you should treat yourself. With such inspiring things as you cannot breathe water. That is one of his precepts.
Oh boy, you should have told that to Quirrell.
Oh, we should have talked to Quirrell.
Oh, right. Black Egg. Yeah, sorry. I totally forgot to.
I think we also forgot to talk to... Oh, you just skipped all the dialogue. Oh, well. Whatever.
Oh, I did.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
you guys
so
are going to have
Hornet-
to yell at me about that the entire run.
Yeah, now we're fighting Hornet, who we have a complicated history with, but she appears to be going around slaying vessels, which is what we are. And once we defeat her, she's going to realize that we might be special or powerful enough to do a certain task later in the game. Basically, oh, go ahead.
Here we can see, not quite yet, but about to appear are the Dreamers, who are also quite an important part of the game. They have given up their lives basically to seal away the Hollow Knight inside of the Black Egg, and they are used, their souls are used as the seal for the Black Egg Temple, so nobody can get in or nobody can get out. That is very important because the Hollow Knight is used to contain the Radiance, which is the bug, the god that caused this infection that you're seeing. You're seeing many bugs have orange eyes, and that is because they are like hypnotized. They're in a state of trance, and that's why they're attacking us, because they've lost their minds.
Yeah, this infection has sort of turned people into mindless slaves to the Radiance. Those bugs and beetles that we see wandering around are actually corpses that have been reanimated by the infection, which is pretty morbid. But there are some characters we meet who are just infected, and some of them are in a trance that we can get them out of. We can also meet characters who aren't infected and are basically able to keep their minds, probably because they have strong enough wills, as we'll see with the mantises here in the fungal wastes.
Also, very sorry for those of you who are active speedrun viewers. I will not be going for Explosion Pogo because of the fact that we're going to be reading all of the lore tablets in the game. We do have to go deep into Mantis Village to get those lore tablets.
Aww.
Sorry.
Really want to see that.
Current patch Explosion Pogo is really great. That's another good point to bring up, though. I am playing on current patch of the game, mostly because I feel like for the point of the run, it's kind of like an introduction to speedrunning for people who might really be into Hollow Knight lore or playing the game casually. So doing it on current patch might feel more familiar to someone who hasn't really seen speedruns of this game before.
Yeah, because normally it's a different patch, right? 1.2.2.4 or something?
1.2.2.1, yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of really great speed tech.
Right, there was the first lore tablet here in the Mantis Village. It basically said, welcome. If you want to die, come right up ahead. We're gonna kill you. So the Mantis tribe is not very welcoming to strangers, and as you can see, all of them are attacking us.
I'm gonna try to go for Mantis Pogo here, though. Oh, missed.
Well, we got 3 mantises.
So yes, this entire kingdom that we are exploring was the creation of a single bug known as the Pale King. And when he showed up to create this kingdom, there were a lot of different groups already living here. So like those mushrooms that we saw earlier and the bugs we saw in Green Path. And they all had sort of different opinions as to if they liked the Pale King or not. The Mantis tribe basically wanted nothing to do with him and his kingdom and wanted to be sequestered off from the rest of Hallownest. And they eventually came to an agreement where the Mantis tribe would be allowed to have their own rules, again, not under Hallownest, but they had to, in return, keep Hallownest safe from Deep Nest, because the Mantis Village basically sits on a border between those two places. And the bugs of Deep Nest are not very friendly.
They're not very pleasant to be around. As the name suggests, Deep Nest is a place that is very far underground. It is very dark, and the creatures that crawl around in there, you don't want anything to do with them, basically. And neither do the inhabitants of Hallownest. That's why the mantises have been given the call to keep them off, keep them out of Hallownest.
Missed the Pogo. So we took a little bitty detour there to go grab Spore Shroom. So there's a couple of lore tablets in the game that can only be read while wearing the tablet. I mean the Spore Shroom charm. Just kind of interesting. It like allows you to speak mushroom. Is that accurate?
That's a very cute way to say it, yeah. But it's definitely true.
Yeah, it seems like the tablets only activate if you have spores coming off of you. Perhaps that's the lore reason. But the mushrooms are an interesting race of bug creatures. They're not bugs, but basically they have a shared mind, meaning that they can kind of all talk to each other, sort of like telepathy. So in order to be able to even read their tablets, you have to have a charm that, I guess, interacts with spores somehow. And there's another character, Mr. Mushroom, who I don't think we see him in this run, right?
No. The only reason I didn't is because this cutscene's after credits. That would take too long.
Yeah. And you can only understand what he says if you have the Spore Shroom charm equipped as well.
That lore tablet basically explains that they sealed the gates to the city, and you could see the door got slammed behind us whenever we entered, so we can no longer exit through that path. We can only enter from there, at least for now.
Even though the city is supposed to be the heart of the kingdom, where all wishes shall be granted, and everybody is supposed to meet, it's very difficult to get into here, because, as you've said, the gates have been sealed off in order to try and fend off the infection. Unfortunately, though, as you can see by the bugs' orange glowing eyes, that didn't really work out. They still got infected. And now they're also trapped inside of their own borders.
Lim has a lot of dialogue, so Lim is a really great lore character because he knows a lot about the Kingdom of Hollownest, and we're going to be selling one of each type of item so that we can get his initial dialogue for each one. Like, for example, this one he talks about the 5 Great Knights, and it's the first mention of them in the game.
Yeah, they can all be found. Well, let's see here. You can find remnants of each of them, and you can find 2 of them alive in the game. But it's not exactly clear when you first meet them that they are knights. So, or that they're part of the 5 Great Knights. So there is Lem is basically a squatter. He kind of just showed up in Hollownest and found a vacant room and just started living there. And
I respect it in this economy.
I mean, nobody really needs the room anyway, so might as well. It's also more safe in there.
yeah, and he also covers his face. I don't know why he does that. But
Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I'll go back for it. Very important lore cutscene, actually.
Oh, at the Fountain Square.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. You guys are supposed to be looking out for me.
Oh, I thought...
So I don't speedrun or brain this.
Exactly. I thought we were going for that later on.
The paceman is still in the group chat, if you want to pull it up.
Let me see.
so yeah, basically Hornet, who we met in Green Path, was luring us into the city as well. We saw her. You can see her try and draw you into the City of Tears before you get the Mantis Claw. But basically, in this cutscene, she explains to you that there's a truth to this kingdom, and if you want to learn more about it, you need to seek a grave in ash, which is a later area called the Kingdom's Edge. And that's when we'll really start to understand all the places where you meet Hornet, you start to understand more and more about the history of the kingdom and what was done to stop the infection. That all of that culminating in the creation of the Hollow Knight, whose statue we see in the city square. So, I guess I can explain the general plot of the game now. So basically, when the Pale King arrived in Howl Nest, he, there was one group of bugs, the moths, who worshipped a being known as the Radiance. And he convinced those moths to basically forget about the Radiance. And by doing so, she was sealed away and forgotten about. But she wasn't completely forgotten about, and over time, more and more began to talk about the Radiance until she reappeared as an infection. And that infection plagued the entire kingdom. And the Pale King basically had to figure out a way to contain this infection, because the Radiance's infection would feed on the minds and the wills of the kingdoms of the citizens of Howl Nest. So what they did was they created a whole bunch of children known as vessels. And what made them unique was that they were dropped in this place called the Abyss, which is full of a dark substance called Void. And the king basically thought that because Void is an emptiness that can't feel emotion or have a will, he could use these vessels to contain the Radiance forever, indefinitely. And so they picked one of these vessels, not us, we were rejected, and the one that was chosen became the Hollow Knight. And they sealed it in the Black Egg Temple, which is what we see at the beginning of the game with Coral, except we didn't see it in this run, but we will see it eventually.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this room is called Hell Room, for good reason. I'm sure that you can tell.
Enemies in the game.
They really are. This is the worst room in the game. I got very unlucky with them both spawning directly on top of me whenever I tried to get around to that wall, and then I just got walled out. We're okay
Nice
now.
dodging, though.
We lived. So yeah, if you guys want to go into some Soul Sanctum lore, because we already read the first tablet.
So right now we are in the Soul Sanctum, where we have these scholars, and actually the mastermind behind them, the Soul Master, they were messing around with Soul, which we've already discussed what Soul is. It's basically a way to heal yourself. It can also be used for combat. As you can see, they shoot these soul fireballs. And they were trying to manipulate the soul, so in order to shield their minds from the infection in a way and to attain a pure focus. But again, like with many other creatures, that didn't work out. And now they're infected as well. But they are still pretty strong, having these soul abilities still.
Yeah, and you can see from this character, he's basically filled to the brim with soul, and we're basically going to be knocking the soul out of him. You see he's this big fat bug who's just full of the souls of all of the bugs that they have captured in this sanctum. You can see their corpses in the background right now. A
soul pinata, if you will.
Yeah. And you'll even see that the ability seep out of his body, the new ability we get that he had contained inside of himself. He thought that he would be able to avoid the infection with all of that soul, but didn't quite work that way. He just ended up killing a whole bunch of people, so whoopsie.
Yikes. They conducted some really brutal experiments on some of these bugs. As we will see when we get down into that pit, there's a whole bunch of mistakes that arose from these experiments, which are, I don't even know what they are. Here you can see one. They are like crippled bug corpses. Are they corpses? I don't know.
I have a question. Somebody mentioned to me yesterday, I didn't know about this, that There's actually a different record, like record, heck, I forgot what it's called. Like they have Abba and Senda, but there's a third one.
Record Bella.
Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, it's been a while since I've looked at that, since it's cut from the game, but it's a pretty interesting one that would have been really nice if it was actually in the game, because it kind of explains what the bugs are trying to do a bit better, but it doesn't. It's not lore because it's cut, so.
Yeah, shame.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I used to know it. To manipulate a soul, reformation of the mind must first occur. Few can bear such change. The path to true progress is littered with mistakes. And that's basically what we can see in the folly and the mistakes. Those were bugs of the Sanctum who were trying to merge the souls of other bugs into them. They were trying to consume the souls of other bugs, and it just deformed their bodies.
Oh wait, did I? Oh, I didn't grab Twister, did I? Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're not running Twister. It's fine. Twister is a really good charm. It increases the amount of spells that you can do per container. So normally you can only do 3 spells with 1 full container, but with Twister you can do 4. Also, I'm doing a really specific movement through this room to try to manipulate them, these enemies, into a good spot where I can kill all of them. So they won't bother me while I grab this. We're gonna need that later to enter a different area. Next up, we're going to do a little bit more errands in Crossroads, and then we're gonna go to Crystal Peaks. Also right there, what I did was I looked down right after paying for the toll. That's a trick called Scurry Look Down. So Hollow Knight is Omega Spaghetti Code. If you don't know what Spaghetti Code means, it's essentially whenever there's weird code interactions and stuff like that. Oh, I didn't buy the Crossroads Stag either. So what's happening is that the look down animation is the same FSM as the gate going down. So it ends up causing the gate to automatically end whenever your look down animation ends. It's really interesting. Oh wait, we need to go the other way because we actually have to do Crossroads stuff.
I did not know about that looking down thing. That's funny.
Yeah,
it saves about a second every time you do it.
I don't think I mentioned it our last run, or whenever we did the submission video for this.
Yeah. I mean, I knew Hollow Knight had Spaghetti Code, but I didn't know about that specific example.
Oh goodness. The Hollow Knight community made a really great GIF emote yesterday. It's called TC Arrive with Spaghetti. It's the TC logo, Peepo arriving, holding a plate of spaghetti. It's one of the best things I've ever seen in my life.
Awesome.
Okay, let me actually buy this, because I don't know if I need it again.
So yeah, the last stag is one of the remnants of the Hollow Nest civilization. They used to ride these babies for miles, but now there's only one left, and he's called the Last Stag, and he's got a little bit of a quest to his story where he remembers this place called the Stag Nest where all the stags used to hang out, and he's forgotten where it's at. And if you happen to unlock all of the stag stations, he'll remember where the stag nest is. You can go see all the corpses of his friends, as well as an empty eggshell, which means that there might be another one left. And so his name then changes from the Last Stag to Old Stag, which is kind of nice.
I think I'm gonna have to buy one extra charm to be able to get the charm notch. Yeah, because I forgot Twister. I guess we'll buy like Bloodheart. money isn't really that tight in this route because a lot of it is just laid back. We're just talking about lore here.
Yeah, we're just chilling.
Yeah, this is like
Also-
semi-casual.
Also, the boss we just defeated on the side, that was Gra's mother. She's just, I guess, an innocent little bug who likes to fly around and was carrying her babies, and we just absolutely murdered her and all the children. So that's nice. And now we talked to Sly, who was also infected, but we have awoken him from his slumber. And now he's actually going to turn back to his shop in Dirtmouth, and we can buy cool stuff from him.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
actually really interesting. I'll let you talk about it.
Oh yeah, so I had said this earlier that some bugs that we meet are starting to become infected, but when we talk to them, they basically get out of their trance and wake up, and we basically save them. The two examples of that being Sly and Bretta. But then there's other NPCs like Mila, who we're about to see, who we see her slowly become infected over the course of the game, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's unavoidable.
If you kill Mila, I hate you, by the way. Unless it's for charity. I've killed Mila for charity before.
It's putting her out of her misery.
What? No.
That's not Mila anymore.
Killing
You're
her
not
for
Mila
money.
anymore.
Words.
It's a corpse. It's not. She's been lost, unfortunately.
You've been lost, unfortunately. I need a little bit more money. We need 800 before the end of this section. So I might stop for a little bit of geonodes. Ow. Rude.
So what's interesting about the Crystal Peak is the crystals seem to start growing on your body the longer you're exposed to them. Deeper in the crystals, we see bugs that are completely consumed by the crystals. For example, we have the crystallized husk, who I assume at some point were just regular husks, but by being in the peaks for so long, actual crystals grew on their bodies and hands. And I think somehow these crystals are also tied to the infection, because what we see with Mila is that at the start of the game, she's just all happy, humming her little tail, but as the game goes on, as you've just said, she stops singing and she just blankly stares into these crystals, and also her eyes start to gleam oranges-ish, which we've already disclosed is a sign of infection. And I think it's tied to these crystals because she was saying that these crystals are singing to her. And that's mentioned also in the Hunter's Journal a few times, that these crystals are singing. So I think they also have a hypnotizing effect of some sort.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. It's pretty vague exactly what power is contained inside of the crystals. One thing about crystals is that they're very good at channeling soul, as there are some charms which are crystals which, when equipped, allow you to heal yourself for more health or heal yourself with less soul. And we can also see that something called the Crystal Heart was being used to power an entire golem somehow. So crystals have some kind of power in them. Potentially
Also,
soul, potentially infection.
I did underplot for the fans.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was about to say, we just saw one of the hardest tricks in the entire game,
Oh my
underplat,
God.
where you're just going below the platform. It barely saves any time, but it looks very cool.
I still need a little bit more. Oh, heck. Oh, wow, that actually hurts them. Oh my goodness, please don't kill me. Oh my goodness, this is like for real casual gameplay. I don't like where you are. Oh my goodness, that's the most scared you'll ever see a speedrunner. Actually, I don't know if I can even get out of here. Oh my lord.
That was intense. It's been a while since I've stared at the screen so tensely, so tensed up.
That's what Milo would try to do to you.
No! Okay. That's fine.
No. Ah. Yeah,
I got trapped. I didn't know. I actually don't know where another good backup geo spot is for this run. I ended up having to buy an extra item. So that's really unfortunate. I mean, if you guys want to talk about more stuff that we probably won't get to cover in the run while we're circling back to Crystal Peaks here, because it's really important that we keep that bench at that location.
So what emray just did there was die. And dying is an interesting concept for a lot of lore games, right? So when a character dies in a game, what's the lore to that? Is there like a reason? Is there an in-lore explanation? Sort of like how in Dark Souls, there's this, the entire lore is built around the idea of dying and being brought back. But in Hollow Knight, it's kind of just a thing that happens and it doesn't really make sense. When you die, the shade inside of your body gets free. And mechanically, that breaks your soul meter, which means you can only hold, what, 2/3 the amount of soul?
Yeah.
And you lose all your geo. Then you have to find your shade and kick the crap out of it, and it gets reunited with you and fixes your soul meter.
I've obviously never died where I died, so I have no idea where my shade is gonna be.
That's fine. It is Easter after all, so a little egg hunt might be cool.
Yeah, there's been lots of theories to try and make sense of why you're able to still exist even though your shade is not inside you anymore, but it doesn't really make sense because if you die again, another shade appears. And it's probably not the case that you can have multiple shades.
Okay, where are you? Oh no. Do I have to go back in there? Okay.
Yep.
I regret everything.
At least now we have a bit more money.
Yeah, I have enough money now. We should be good. Like I said, I need 800 by the end of this. That's, I think, the only grub that we get to save in this run. But I will save one other bonus grub because other runners won't save it.
I wonder which one that is.
Yeah, there are some toxic members of our community that, for some reason, hate that particular grub. I won't point any fingers or anything, but you know.
Which one?
The beast and grub.
Okay.
Oh, I hate that one.
See, look! Look at the toxicity.
Mossbag, what are you talking about? Oh,
Yeah, I
boy.
hate all grubs, so it's okay.
Oof. I didn't think you were one of them.
I hope they all get eaten. I wonder if that happens.
Unfortunately, we won't get to see any of the grub lore because grubs would take a lot longer to go get.
So actually, Mossbag, you do like the grubs because you know, deep down you know what happens when you free all of them.
I like
So
what
you
happens
just don't
to
free
them.
them. No, no.
I'm glad we're not talking about grub lore. It's confusing. It's actually one of the most mysterious parts of the game, so. And now we're in the resting grounds, which is a very important area lore-wise, as there's a memorial there for the Dreamers, who we saw earlier after we fought Hornet. Basically, their job is to protect the Hollow Knight inside the Black Egg Temple and keep anyone from messing with it, including us. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna throw us into the dream world. That way we can't mess anything up for them. And
For the next minute or so.
yeah, it's a foolproof plan. No one's gonna appear and out of the blue and just save us, like a certain moth character. But yeah, this is the
who's that?
dream world.
Just
And
some
that-
random moth appeared.
Yep.
Video is probably a little bit behind. You'll see what I screamed about in a second. Platforming
jumps
is
up pretty
really
scary.
hard. Okay, so here's why I'm bad at this. I'm a max percent runner, right?
Yeah.
We don't normally do the platforms like that. And I probably shouldn't have gone for it. There's a really cool trick that I get to show off here, though, that was recently found. So we pause for early control, and then we can C-dash out of the room before waking up. We used to have to do that with normal dashes, but it was extremely precise on current patch. C-dash makes it free, so that's really cool. That was pretty recently found, I think like a couple weeks ago.
That is pretty cool, yeah. Does it also work on 1221?
Yeah, but the dashes are free on 1221, so I don't know if it's actually worth going for or not.
Well, keep your voice down. I hear that the Team Cherry is doing more fixes.
No, they need to
I saw
stop.
that they got a few demos or betas available for a new build.
What are
Yeah,
they even fixing at this point? I mean, they said years ago that they are done with Hollow Knight.
so there's very few things that actually impact speedrunning. So there was something found recently because of Team Cherry patching it. Actually, we didn't know it existed before that, but apparently Spore Shroom on this patch, current patch, shreds the Hollow Knight. So a couple of current patch 80% runs have been running Spore Shroom for the Hollow Knight. And then you used to be able to kill Crystal Guardian while he was on the bench, so that's kind of unfortunate that we can't do that in speedruns anymore. But other than that, like, most of the changes are actually really, really good changes. For example, they fixed Dashmaster. Dashmaster used to dash down if you were even slightly holding the down input. Now it prioritizes left and right dashes over down. You have to be holding directly down to down dash, which is something we've wanted for a really long time.
Oh yeah, that definitely messed me up a bunch in certain speedruns.
So now we can see this snail shaman. We've seen a few of these already, but there are a few of them all over the kingdom, and pretty much all of them except the first one we meet have met horrible ends. This one, the Soul Sanctum, appears to have been experimented on by the bugs here, and we put him out of his misery though, so it's all good. But apparently all of the soul shamans are relatives to the one we meet. And when you show up with the power of one of his dead relatives, he's like, "Oh, you must have met my third aunt. I hope she's doing well." we don't say anything, just you know.
Yeah, no one tell him.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Although there are worrying lore implications about whether or not our character can actually talk, considering that it can answer yes or no questions and talk, like, not talk to people, but like interact with them in certain ways, which gets very complicated when you start to think about how our character is supposed to be this mindless creature that doesn't have a will of its own. And that has led to much debate in the lore community.
Yeah, it seems like none of the vessels were actually what the Pale King wanted, because even we seem to have our own, like, will. And the Hollow Knight obviously was also flawed.
Yep. Yeah. I would argue that there's a lot of nuance to our character, but the Hollow Knight itself is definitely a flawed creation.
So normally we wouldn't need to fight this boss, but I think it's really really good to actually encounter Dung Defender, being that he's the most energetic and alive out of all of the remaining knights. He probably has like the saddest story out of all of them. Oh, I didn't have enough. Heck.
He's just out here defending Isma's Grove, which is just to the right of here. Isma is also one of the 5 Great Knights, and she died a long time ago, as she actually turned into a literal tree somehow. I don't know how that happened. I'm not sure if Ogrim is aware of that fact, but one of his last missions was to guard that place, and he's still doing it.
Yeah, his girlfriend turned into a tree. That's rough, buddy.
I don't know what it is with trees in this game. The White Lady is also a tree. Like,
You guys
what's up
aren't
with
into
that?
trees?
Yeah, not a big fan of trees.
I don't know.
Overrated.
All right, I'm gonna heal up just to be safe because we're gonna be doing some skips here. Oh wait, hold on. Wait, let me die.
What?
Forgot.
Die?
There's a not die, but there's a tablet up here, and we were technically supposed to hit that switch, but you see, we can't read, so we didn't learn that. We're just gonna go the hard way.
You could also dream nail that thing in top left, if you want to be extra safe.
Oh
But
no, we're good.
You don't need it. Emray's just that good.
Oh heck! Wait, what? Maybe today I just can't play the game.
No, you got this.
I'm normally really good at this video game. I
Okay.
swear.
Whew. I was really worried there for a second that I was gonna cast the commentator's curse onto you.
Yeah, I'm blaming you for the Crystal Peaks death.
I didn't say anything about that though. Also,
You were
this is
thinking
Isma
it.
right there to the right.
Oh right, let's go.
Ancient dream nail her.
Yeah, let's go check her out while we're here.
Yeah, and she basically says, Ogrim, there is no time, which is referencing the Dung Defender who we just saw. He used to say, Isma, teach me, in his sleep, but I think that actually is no longer in the game now that he has a dream boss fight. But those two had a thing going on, but we don't really know anything more than that because she's dead, and he doesn't really say anything about it. So
Good
but she was
RNG.
one.
Sorry. So that C dash that I just did there is RNG. You really want the enemies to be high above you, that way you won't get hit out of it. That saves about the most time that you can save in that room.
Very nice. I feel like that's quite unlikely to happen, that all 3 are out of your way.
Yeah, it's pretty uncommon. Speaking of enemy RNG though, this section coming up is a little bit like, okay, so the first 2 were always consistent, and then after that point all of the rest of them are going to be RNG, and I'm going to do a D-Dark to give myself a faux shade dash. If you're familiar with shade dash in this game, it's basically an invulnerability dash, but you can use your dive iframes to dash out of enemies too, or dash through enemies. So that's one of the few times that we actually do that.
So right now we're in the ancient basin. That's what it's called. And this is kind of like a remnant of what was here even before Hallownest. We get a few subtle hints about there being older kingdoms that were somehow worshippers of the void
You know what?
who existed here before the Pale King.
That trick I was trying to do is called the dash jump. For some reason, I just perfectly failed it the same way every single time.
It's really precise, so
Yeah.
That's fine. And here we have coming up the boss fight against the broken vessel. Is it a broken vessel?
Yes.
I always get confused with sealed vessel and broken vessel, which is also one of our vessel friends, which got infected just now. The infection has consumed its mind, reanimated it, and now it's using its body to essentially try to kill us. Of course, we're not going to let that happen, and instead we are going to put it back down to sleep. And now after it's dead, it actually... wait, I think that only happens after the dream fight. It actually thanks us for killing it.
Yeah, if you kill the broken vessel, it reaches out to you. If you kill the lost kin, it bows to you. Which is an interesting interaction. As this is one of our relatives we really get to see in the game and interact with in any way.
This is actually a really, really great fight in the speedrun, by the way, because we actually get to go for the stun lock if I can get it. We don't get to see the stun lock in, say, 106% because we just, like, insta-kill with flukes, because flukes are broken.
And stun lock basically means that the broken vessel can't get stunned anymore, right?
Yeah. Not having Twister is really hurting me.
So essentially we want to keep as much health as possible until late in the fight, because when the broken vessel can't get stunned anymore, it's obviously a lot harder, as it just keeps charging at us. But we defeated it. Oh, do we want to die?
Oh no, I died. Yeah, you can die out as soon as the Cheeto Puff happens on current patch, and on 1221 you have to wait until he raises his arm. But luckily there is a visual cue for both. It's a little faster than watching the whole thing.
So yeah, when we killed the lost kin, we got essence. And essence is another metaphysical thing in Hollow Knight that basically represents dreams. Whenever a person dies or whatever, they leave behind essence that is basically the light of memories. And the seer, who's a moth who gave us the dream nail, basically told us that we need to hone and sharpen our dream nail by bringing her essence. And so part of seeing more of what the game has to offer is by collecting essence.
Yeah, we didn't get to see her yet. We sea-dashed out of her room. That trick is actually called Seer Skip, because we skip seeing Seer. It's kind of a funny play on words. So now we're going back for another dream boss. So there's two different types of essence giving bosses. They have grave warriors and dream bosses. And dream bosses are rematches and they give you a lot more essence. And the grave warriors give you very little essence, but the fights are also a lot shorter.
And there are also whispering roots, which can appear in a few different rooms, and you basically just collect little orbs. They're little platforming challenges, I suppose. And they don't give much at all.
Yeah, they're not worth it for the speedrun. There is a meme category called All Whispering Roots, though, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't think you need to even do a single one to get 2400, do you?
We use enough to make up for the dream gates that we use in pretty much all of the categories. So, like, we'll get, like, 14 or so in Queen's Garden in the max percent categories. Wow, I didn't think his range was that big. This is another spot where not having Twister is really hurting me. Because I'm gonna have to do a lot more work to take him down on his first phase. Because he has a lot of HP on this first phase. After that, though, he's pretty much, like, done. Also, interestingly, Sportstrom doesn't hit him, so that's safe to do in this fight.
Huh.
I learned that whenever I did a challenge run where I did only charm damage in Pantheon 5, I actually had my nail unmapped for the challenge run.
Wow, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. It was actually really cool.
The Pantheons, in case you didn't know, are some of the hardest gauntlets in the game. It's boss rushes, with Pantheon 5 having all the 48, I believe, bosses in the game back to back.
Yeah.
Beating them all with only charm damage is pretty insane. That must have taken like several hours.
Yeah, I it's one of the things that I'm probably most well known for in Hollow Knight. Yeah, we can talk about the maggot first though. Yeah, I think a lot of people know of me because of like Pantheon 5 runs and things like that. Like I'm one of the top runners of that particular thing. So I've done a lot of really dumb challenges.
The maggots are basically the lowest class of citizens in Hallownest. So there are some discussions of class in this game that are kind of interesting. Like the City of Tears has a division of class where there's the blue characters on one side, then there's the purple ones on the other. So I guess there's some socialist commentary in this game, but it's pretty light, I'd say.
Doesn't Emilitia, like, isn't she laughing at all of the other people in Hallownest because they, like, bullied her or something?
Yeah, they cast her out.
Wait, I forgot the lore tablet, didn't I?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That one's basically talking about how bugs shouldn't be afraid to show their true form in Hallownest. It's a very perplexing lore tablet. We're not really sure what a true form is. Although in Hollow Knight, there's this concept of masks. Like our health is represented in masks, and there are some characters that wear masks. And there's an NPC that makes masks called the Mask Maker. And their dialogue is extremely cryptic, and it's really hard to understand what role masks serve in this universe. It appears to change you in a certain way. Like there are certain members of the Grim Troop who wear masks that seem to affect who they are. So that might have something to do with true form, but it's not clear.
Here we have Gorb, I believe the first of the Dream Warriors that we will be fighting. He is known as the Great Mind, so he's pretty smart. He talks about ascending. Ascend with Gorb. So maybe he wants us to ascend to space with him. So he's probably an alien.
You know, actually, funny story. I bought this game to speedrun it, right? So I didn't know what people were talking about when they used to come into my chat and be like, ascend with Gorb. Or like just spamming ascend. Like I had only played the game in Chinese. So it took me a really long time to get that.
Yeah, Gorb's a weird character. All of the Dream Warrior bosses that we see are Kickstarter backer characters. And Gorb's was originally some slug that carried a nail in its mouth. And it had this weirdly shaped head. But it wasn't named Gorb, so it seems like Team Cherry themselves sort of came up with all of the backstory for Gorb, where he's some great mind who talks about ascending.
Yeah, we kind of glazed over pretty much all of Cliff's there. That last That last tablet that we read talked about how if you leave Hollow Nest, you have to relinquish your mind.
Yeah, and that ties back to the poem we heard at the beginning of the game that basically seems to say that bugs have this base instinct of not being very intelligent, being more animalistic, and the Pale King, by creating Hollow Nest, gave them a world where they could be civilized. And so the Pale King basically created Hollow Nest as a place where bugs would become more intelligent so that they could worship him. So the game basically is implying that if you were to leave the kingdom, the bugs residing there would lose their intelligence.
Which technically isn't true, right? Because in the one comic that Team Cherry released about Quirrell, we find out that Quirrell, who went outside of the boundaries of the Kingdom of Hallownest, he kept his mind. The only thing he lost was his memory. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that he was wearing Monomon's mask and that somehow shielded his mind. Or maybe it's because he was originally just gifted with a mind to think, and what you already have, you can't lose after leaving. And only if bugs who were given their higher thought by Hallownest would lose it once they leave.
Yes, and that's sort of implied with Mask Maker, who says that it's a wonderful thing to have a face, and it's not something with which everyone is blessed. So there might be just natural divisions of intelligence among the different orders of bugs, and some bugs can just naturally be intelligent no matter what, while others need to be in a place like Hallownest in order to have a higher mind. It's all very complicated and not explained clearly.
It's most of the lore in the game.
Yeah, it's all very vague.
Oh, for sure.
So
We're just getting a bunch of upgrades here from Seer. Our next upgrade is going to be our Dream Gate, which allows you to set a teleport point. And that's going to be really useful for us because there's a couple of places that hard save you in the game. Like every time that we were to reach a Dreamer, the game saves you to that location. And Dream Gate's going to allow us to bypass that without having to rely on benches.
yeah, Dream Gate was added after the game initially released, and it was a good addition.
Where am I going? Oh, right, hold on. We don't go that way. I need to bench, though. Because benching in this game restores both the soul totems and the enemies in the game. And we're gonna need soul for the next section, because we need to dive through here.
Are we going to meet Grey Mourner now?
No, we're not going to see her. You can talk about her, though, because she's kind of important.
I guess.
I mean,
Grey Mourner's...
she's one of the
I'm
knights.
Yeah, she's important. Yeah, so she's one of the 5 great knights. She speaks in an accent, which is very strange. And it's basically implied that she's from a far-off land. And she carries these things called delicate flowers. And she was basically in a relationship with one of the Mantis tribe's daughters. The daughter of the Trader Lord, which is a character we haven't mentioned yet, but we'll see eventually. But their love was forbidden, and the Trader Lord's daughter was eventually killed. So Grey Mourner asks us to basically take a delicate flower and put it on her deceased lover's grave, which involves traveling like halfway across Hallownest without getting hit. So it's a pretty well-loved side quest in the game.
It's actually probably one of my favorite ones in the speedrun, just because, like, I really love doing hitless stuff. Like, I've been doing a lot of hitless runs and things like that. But Flower Quest kind of inspired that for me. Like, I don't know, it's just really cool whenever you're actually good at the movement in the game. It feels really good.
When
to
you're
do.
actually good at the movement. But me, when I did that casually, I was going back and forth 10, 20 times and died at the very last second to those spikes in the Queen's Gardens and cursed everything in my life.
Those
because of
spikes
that.
are terrible.
Yeah.
It's not just you.
Now we're coming up on the second fight against Hornet. She, if we remember, we've met her at the Fountain Square in the city, and she told us to come here to this place, and now we have to prove ourselves worthy of actually carrying out the plan.
Oh no!
Oh, what's happening?
That is a frame perfect glitch that I just did, which is actually a major glitch. This run would be invalid if it were a real run. She can't get off the ground anymore. Like, she is locked, which is why it's broken.
Pretty helpful though.
Yeah, you can just de-dark her to death whenever she's like that, which is really boring. The fight started out really well too. That kind of sucks.
Hornet wasn't so strong after all.
She is a spider. Her feet are too sticky. So yeah, now that we've defeated Hornet, she allows us to reach the corpse of the worm, which was basically the Pale King's original form before creating Howlnest. He used to be this giant worm creature, and he hatched out of it and became the King of Howlnest. And by going into his corpse, we get marked with the King's brand, which will gain us access to another part of Howlnest called the Abyss, where the Pale King used the void to create the vessels. So basically, Hornet is letting us gain access to the Abyss so that we can learn about our creation and the place of our birth, as she calls it. So there is a lore tablet in front of the doorway to the Abyss that basically explains that once they had created the Hollow Knight, they sealed away the entrance to the Abyss so no one could ever see what was done in order to create the Hollow Knight. Because there's a lot of shame that the King and Queen felt for what they did. At least somewhat, anyway.
Is the night made of wall, or is the wall made of night? He screams, for he does not know.
Very true. So you can see the corpses of our brother and sister in that first room. And now in this next room, there's these things called void tendrils that are reaching out of the lake of void to attack us. And we can also see the shades of our fellow vessels try and attack us as well. So we were one of the lucky few who were able to escape the Abyss, and we eventually left Howlnest and then came back for some reason.
Yeah, I think it's implied that there might be a place in Deep Nest or something where it might be connected, because you can see vessels hanging from the ceiling in Nosk's arena, so that means that Nosk is probably catching some of them that are trying to make it out.
Yep. That's probably the best theory we have, because there's really not much to go on how any vessel would have been able to escape the Abyss after they closed the gates.
And as you can see, there is a Dreamknell dialogue right there, but we can't get it because it requires the Awoken Dreamknell, which we don't have just yet. Yeah,
and that creature says two things. It says void, power without form, or power without... Is that right? God. It's something like that.
I think so, yeah.
And then once we do some other things and unlock the extra endings of the game, it changes to Lord of Shades, which is what we would become, because we gain control over the void. And that's part of what all of this stuff with Hornet and the worm corpse and finding the king and queen of Halnest is all about.
We're not
Somebody
gonna
in
get
chat
to.
saying it's power without unity.
Yeah,
but it
that's
comes out to the same effect.
Yeah, without unity.
I don't think we're gonna get to cover a whole lot about the DLC lore though. Because, I mean, Godhome is a whole other, like, set of lore on its own. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, Godhome is very complicated. It brings a lot of its own big questions and does a little to try and explain what Void is and how it works a bit more. But even after all these years, I still feel like we as a community don't have a super strong grasp on how all the systems work.
Gonna kill them. Since we have Dreamwilder, I can do a kill through the door without having to actually fight this guy. It's really convenient.
That is very nice. There's a giant husk in there, which is actually really annoying to fight usually, but that's cool. That's a very nice strategy that I did not know about, but I will be using it in my runs.
And 112%, we can actually kill him with a bit straight through the floor. It's pretty funny. He dies to 2 shrieks.
That's funny.
Now it's time for probably one of the harder bosses. Most people consider Watcher Knight, especially like their first time casually, one of the hardest bosses that they'll encounter. But they only have 220 HP, and D-Dark does 88 damage with Shaman Stone, so we are way, way overpowered for them.
Yeah, the tough thing about them is that 2 of them at a time will come after you. At least for, like, casuals. But they are, the Watcher Knights are basically protecting Lurien, who is one of the 3 Dreamers. And what the 3 Dreamers did was basically, they put themselves under eternal slumber as a way to protect the Black Egg Temple. So we have to find all 3 of them and destroy them in order to actually gain access to the Black Egg Temple and defeat the Hollow Knight.
It is also quite interesting to note what their thoughts are now in retrospect on the seals that they have placed upon the Black Egg. Lurien is one who says that the seals must remain under all costs because it was their order to do so, and so they should keep them up. Whereas Monomon says that the seals must be broken because, well, the outbreak isn't stopped, obviously, and they need to find a different way to stop it.
Yeah, and we can see from Lurien's Streamnail dialogue there that is what he thinks, that the seals have to remain because it's what they promised to do. But Monomon realizes that if they don't break the seals, then the Radiance is going to get out anyway. So, she's the smarter one of the 3, I'd say. The other Dreamer, Hera, who resides in Deep Nest, basically only agreed to do any of this because she wanted a child. And the Pale King helped provide her one, that being Hornet. So...
It's a nice way to word that.
Yeah.
And she doesn't actually have, or she doesn't word a strong opinion on whether the seals should stay or should be broken. So we don't actually know about that.
She got what she wanted.
Also, we don't really know, because there was at some point a King of Deepness. We don't really know what happened to that guy, right?
Yeah, all we really seem to know is that he's dead. At least that's what the mushrooms of the fungal waste say. When we arrive at Deep Nest is also very much overrun by the infection. And I think the only character who really has anything to say is Midwife, who helped with Hornet's birth, I guess, considering she's a midwife.
Should I talk to Midwife? Do you think we have time for that?
If you know where she is.
Yeah, I know where she is.
Yeah, she has good dialogue. She has 3 lines of dialogue and then a 4th if you have Weaver Song.
Oh, we're not gonna have Weaver Song.
Here we have Markov, probably the most hated boss in the game because his fight is very annoying, especially in the Pantheon of Hallownest, when you're already like half an hour into it, and he just comes at you with those spears. In that arena, there's actually no ground, and he just wrecks you a whole bunch.
I really do hate Markov.
And he's basically saying, oh, you dare challenge me? Then come right ahead. And yeah, we just wrecked him. Then he realized, oh, actually, I was already dead. Well, sucks to be me, I guess. And then he leaves. I guess we consume him.
I love his last line, you're the darkness, come to consume me. Because, like, it's the most metal thing. It's like whenever you accidentally say something really metal.
Oh, yeah. Do you have the sports room?
Yeah. Since I didn't use Twister, I just kept it on. Don't like my health, though. These aspids can be a bit of a troll.
Oh, for sure. I've died deep down into where we're about to go.
Alright, we're gonna be good.
That loses a whole bunch of time.
Yeah, Markov is interesting in that most moths in general are considered a passive species in Hallownest or in Hollow Knight, but Markov is one of the few who took up a nail and fought. And he travels to Kingdom's Edge searching for something, although we never are told what. So, and then we have this lore tablet, which basically tells you where to find Mr. Mushroom, who is an NPC who can show up who will show up in 7 different locations. And Mr. Mushroom is weird because when you meet him, he's talking to somebody else, but you don't see anyone else, so it's like he's using his mushroom powers to talk to someone else. And his dialogue references Team Cherry's games that they made before Hollow Knight, which were basically game jam games that they made in a weekend before they started working full-time on Hollow Knight. So it kind of implies that those games are somehow canonically occurring, perhaps in some parallel universe to ours, or they're just cheeky references that you shouldn't think too much about.
Yeah, it's probably just Team Cherry having fun, especially with that end cutscene from Mr. Mushroom, where he just flies off and it's a big title card to be continued. So we might actually see Mr. Mushroom again in the next upcoming game, Silk Song. Or in other games from Team Cherry, for that matter.
Maybe it'll be
Very
someone
interested.
connected to him or something, too. It could be a lot of things.
I'm
That's
very
what I love
interested
about
what they
Team
do with
Cherry,
that.
though. Because, like, they're obviously one of the best storytelling game devs I think I've ever seen. Hollow Knight has probably one of the deepest stories that I've ever seen in a game. Oh, heck. Caught myself.
Oh,
Yeah, Hollow
that was
Knight had a
kinda close.
good... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that was pretty close with that remail.
I have Dream
Now you
Welter,
go.
too.
Now you go, mossbag.
Oh, okay. I'll just explain Elder Who. He is a shaman who was trying to treat people who got the infection, but he ended up getting infected and tried to kill the bugs or the Mantis tribe warriors, and they killed him in defense. And like a lot of Dream Warriors, he doesn't really understand that he has passed on. But after we murder him again, he realizes that he is actually a ghost.
He also thought that, he was trying to purify the waters there, and he thought that the mantises were infected, but in actuality, he was the one whose mind was consumed by the radiance, by the infection, and that's why he attacked the mantises. And so obviously the mantises didn't just accept that, and they, as you said, they killed him. And he only realized that now after we defeated him in battle.
I'm gonna heal real.
Yeah, there's a lot of small little tragic stories in this game. A lot of different NPCs who have similar stories to that. So Hollow Knight is interesting in that it's both kind of a depressing game, but it has a lot of levity to it as well. So it's quirky. Because you have characters who have very sad and tragic backstories like No Eyes or Elder Who, and then you have silly characters like Mr. Mushroom who don't make any sense. So it ends up creating a world where you don't really know what you're gonna encounter next.
Oh, did I get the one above Elder Who? I probably didn't.
Not sure. I don't think we saw one.
Okay, I can
The one we
check
just
for
saw
it.
is the one referencing Deep Nest King, and they call him Deep Nest Dead Sire, so we assume that's the king. And then they mention that their queen is just a common beast, so that being Hera. And that's about all we really get about Deep Nest on lore tablets. Deep Nest itself doesn't have any lore tablets, and there's not a whole lot of information on them. And then that lore tablet was basically showing that the mushrooms, when the Pale King arrived, warily accepted his rule. So they were kind of not happy about it, but they decided that they would let the Pale King rule over them because the Pale King has some sort of foresight ability that the mushrooms thought would be valuable. So, and then
This lore tablet... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You got it.
Okay, so this lore tablet is basically the mushrooms flexing with their shared mind. They're saying that when you are together, when you have one mind together, it is way easier to share thoughts, whereas other people, other bugs, have to use words, and most of the meaning gets lost in the words. And they find it quite boring to be locked into your own mind.
I want whatever TC had whenever they made this game.
Yeah, it must have been strong stuff.
Certainly had a bunch of mushrooms.
Ah, stop.
Oh,
So yeah, is there another tablet here?
Yeah, there's one more, and then I'll go down to the mushroom mama. I think it's down here, actually. I'm a speedrunner, I don't know the names. Okay, this is the mushroom. I passed up the lore tablet then.
I don't remember if that thing has a name. But that giant mushroom is basically complaining that even though they did accept the Pale King's rule, they still ended up getting infected and dying because the Pale King didn't have an actual plan, or the Pale King ended up not being able to stop the infection. He had a plan, it just didn't work, I should say. And then that lore tablet was just more about them bragging that they can speak in a shared mind. So the mushrooms have a lot of lore tablets.
They really do. Green Path does too.
Yeah, Green Path has the most, I think, but the mushrooms are right behind them.
Why do the mushrooms even have to write stuff down? I mean, with their shared mind, shouldn't they be able to just remember it as long as at least one of them is alive?
You'd think. And now we're coming upon the archive, which is, or the teacher's archive, which is run by one of the three dreamers. And there's a lot of lore that gets discussed here in the form of these weird lore tablets that are written in a very strange way.
It's just Australian, I believe. I think that's how they speak down there. But basically, these lore tablets talk about the plan to contain the Radiance inside the Hollow Knight, and that shows that Monomon was also somehow involved in that plan, because how would he otherwise have written that down, right? He noted all of that, and he probably helped the Pale King.
That is a relatively new one cycle setup, by the way.
Oh, wow. That was very nice.
I don't know if you've ever seen that one before, Taco.
No, that's pretty impressive.
I had not seen that. That was good.
Thanks, that means a lot.
And so yeah, here in this tank we actually have Monomon, and Quirrell, Monomon's apprentice, is about to give her mask back. And then we are going to go into her mind and annihilate her, I guess. So that we can eventually unlock the Black Egg Temple.
Yeah, and Monomon's the one who's okay with this. She's the one who wants the seal to break. So it's okay that we're murdering her. But yeah, she is a pretty important character, I would say. So it's interesting that there's disagreement among the dreamers as to what they should do about our character.
Yeah, Hera's obviously the outside one here. Lurian seems like he's the most dedicated to the king, but Monomon seems like she knows what's going on more. Like based on her lore tablet, she seems more like she knows what the Pale King was actually trying to do. So she's probably in the right, assuming that the seals need to break. And spoilers, she is. We just have a couple more lore tablets to get on our way out of here.
Yeah, what was the first one we saw?
We saw the top one.
Okay, so this one is basically talking about the creations of the vessels themselves, which is basically just a shell that is empty and that is filled with void. So our main character is one of those creations. And then this tablet basically explains the difference between the Pale King and the Radiance, where the Radiance's light is called ungrowth, that basically stops, any kind of development of society. Everything just kind of, basks in the Radiance's light and nothing changes. Whereas the Pale King, his society led to development, change, construction. So, just showing the dichotomy of what these two different higher beings sort of do, how they rule over their subjects and stuff like that.
Also, thank you very much, Scurry, for the raid with 500 people. Welcome, everybody. We're speedrunning Hollow Knight lore tonight.
Yeah, for those of you who did just come in from the raid, lore percent isn't really an actual category. Basically what we're doing is we're going around the map while doing a true ending run and trying to cover as much lore as we can in a Hollow Knight run. Of course, Hollow Knight being a really deep game, There's just way too much to cover, even in a 2-hour slot, so we're gonna do our absolute best, though.
So we just passed Massive Moss Charger, is probably the most important character in the entire game.
Also the hardest boss.
Lots of deep lore, but no time.
Unfortunately.
I think we might have missed the lantern. I think we were supposed to get that already.
Oh, wait. Oh, I was supposed to get lantern. Oh, okay, hold on. So how can I do this? Yeah, I've already made quite a few mistakes in this run so far. It's all right. I know what I'm gonna do. I have a brilliant 10,000 IQ routing plan for this.
Let's just do Dark Deepness.
So the lore tablet we did just see was basically the bugs of Green Path complaining that the White Lady has taken some of their land and turned it into the Queen's Garden. So, yeah, the bugs of Green Path kind of had a rough setup with the Pale King. They basically had to allow for there to be a road through their kingdom, or through Green Path, that those arriving in Hollow Nest could follow to get to the City of Tears. And if you were to ever stumble off of the road, then the Mosskin would attack you and face Un's laws.
Yeah, we're gonna have
there's a lot
to.
of. Go ahead.
We're gonna have to take a pretty big detour here because unfortunately I was supposed to buy the lantern at Deepness, which I forgot about because obviously whenever you're running, I don't know if there are any other speedrunners in chat, but whenever you're running multiple categories at a time, you tend to forget things. Because like, oh, I'm running this other category that doesn't get lantern and my brain just didn't. It's alright though, because we can get the Stag here and then Dreamgate right back where we were supposed to be.
And in the end, that just gives us more time to explore the game and
Yeah.
talk about lore. So it's a win-win situation.
See, we get more Stag Nest dialogue.
Yep, there he's talking about finding the Stag Nest, which I don't know if you see it on this run.
No, we're not gonna.
Yeah.
Even the max percent speedruns don't normally do it. We just skip up there.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, Deep Nest is a dark and scary place. You need to have a lantern to even be able to see. Oh, I guess we're doing.
Yeah, this is why I needed lantern, because you can't interact with No
Oh.
Eyes without it.
Okay, so this is the Stone Sanctuary. This is where No Eyes is found, and No Eyes is another backer boss. And it's not really clear what's going on with her. But there are a few. We kind of know what the original Kickstarter story for her was. And it was basically that she left Hollow Nest on some sort of to go fight or do something. And when she came back, all of her children had been infected. And they told her not to go into the Stone Sanctuary. She did anyway, and her children swarmed her and ate out her eyes and killed her. And her ghost was supposed to warn people about her children, the ghosts of her children murdering them. In-game, it's kind of not clear if she killed her children, or if they killed her, or if she gouged out her own eyes, or if they ate them out of her. Regardless, something very dark and morbid happens in the Stone Sanctuary.
Yeah,
And it's probably
No Eyes
better that we
is
don't know.
No Eyes is probably the worst background story of all of the Grave Warriors. Yeah, I don't think I need to know what happened. She doesn't have eyes. That's...
Yeah, that's...
She was
That's
born
the one
like
thing we
that.
can say. Canonically, she doesn't have eyes.
Heck. I missed the pogo.
Oh yeah, and another theory is that she tore their eyes out to keep them from getting infected.
Yeah, I kind of like that one though.
Oh, I wouldn't like that when somebody did that to me. It sounds pretty painful.
So yeah, she does say like can't dream if you're still breathing, which kind of implies that maybe she killed them so that they would dream, which is part of how the radiance infects things. So, which means she did kill them so they would get infected. It's sad and depressing no matter how you look at it. So, yeah. So we're going to be getting into the Queen's Garden, which the Queen of Hallownest is the White Lady, and she's basically a root-like being. And basically when Hallownest, at some point during Hallownest's fall, she retreated to the gardens by herself with one of the other 5 Great Knights, Drya. And she rooted herself into the ground and basically sealed herself away in this weird cocoon and put bindings over herself. And she says she does that because she has an insatiable desire to breed, which is interesting. Part of the creation of the vessels involved these egg-like things that were littered throughout the abyss that the vessels were presumably born out of. So the White Lady feels a bit of shame in what she did in having those eggs drop down there. And part of why she has hidden herself away and sealed herself is to keep herself from doing that ever again. So, but yeah, she gives us part of this item called the King's Soul, which we need in order to unlock additional endings to the game. Also in the Queen's Garden is the traitor mantises. So basically, we saw the regular mantises earlier. They weren't infected, but there was a subgroup of the mantises who willingly took in the infection because it made them stronger. They were outcasts from the Mantis Village and had to take up residence here in the Queen's Garden. So, and you can see that they set up some tents and little groups or colonies here. So, but they're not much stronger than the mantises, so.
Actually, come here.
At least not to the night.
And this is Frogrim. Frogrim is ass, for lack of a better word. It's the worst. Okay, it's the second worst room in the game because Hellroom is the worst room in the game. We saw that. I hate frogs. All my homies hate frogs. I was pretty lucky though. They were really nice in those first rooms. Never mind. Never mind. Why would I compliment you? I regret complimenting you. Classic.
I don't even know what they're supposed to be.
I think they're like a type of spider, maybe.
They're probably just supposed to be annoying. What makes them so bad is that because they have random jumping patterns, they can just completely block your way with no way to dodge, which sucks, of course. And when you're on low health already, well, you might as well try again.
Yeah, I mean, the first rooms were pretty lucky. Frogs are probably my least favorite part of speedrunning Hollow Knight.
So that was Marmu we just murdered. She's another dream warrior who was actually designed by one of the lead developers' mother. and she voices it.
Yeah, isn't her name in code like Mum something? I don't remember. I saw it just yesterday, actually.
Oh, I don't know. Probably.
It has
Yeah,
Mum in the name.
It's William's mom's design. So, and
That's
she
really
also
cute.
voiced the White Lady too. So, I guess she was in the office when they were doing Queen's Garden. So, they had her do some voices. But yeah, she apparently Marmu is apparently a puss moth caterpillar, which is a real type of bug. Which is it's cool to see actual bugs or characters in Hornet that actually look like real bugs sometimes. Unlike the frogs, which don't look like anything.
And here, finally, we have the Trader Lord, who was once one of the Mantis Lords, but he decided that he wanted to become even stronger and thought that by taking in the infection he would become stronger. And potentially he did, but his sisters didn't really like that, so they cast him out. Now he's just living here in the wild.
Yeah, and he's probably a boss that's had the most changes
Yeah.
since it came out.
So on patch 1221, we can actually kill him in the ceiling before he even spawns. He has 360 HP and he only has 2 attacks and does 1 damage. And on this patch, he has 800 HP. Does double damage if he hits you with any of his blades. His body only does 1 though. And he has 2 different attacks, which we only ever get to see 1 of in the speedrun because we usually stay right on top of him. The other attack is a ranged attack that you have to be pretty far away from him for his AI to go for.
So yeah, that was the White Lady we just talked to. Our mother, who cast us into the abyss and left us there. So
We could probably
she's
kill
nice.
her. We could probably take her if we knew.
We probably could. But we're not allowed to because the game doesn't let you. Unfortunately.
Feels bad.
I'm waiting on that mod to come out. The White Lady boss fight mod.
I don't think she'd put up much of a fight. She seems to be quite old and senile. She doesn't even know that Drya, the guardian that was supposed to protect her, is dead right outside of her tent.
Yeah, people like to say that she has no idea what she's talking about, but I'd say that from what it appears, she is going blind and she's very isolated from a lot of things because she's in that cocoon and everything. But one thing that she can definitely sense is like big things like the vessels and the Radiance's powers, because she is aware of that stuff. So
That's true, yeah, for sure.
This is going to be the last Grave Warrior that we fight too. This should be the last of the essence that we need outside of a little bit more from a Dream Tree.
So this is Galleon. He came to Deepness because he said he is the strongest warrior in the world and he wanted to test his strength against the bugs of Deepness. Unfortunately though, he kind of took on more than he could handle and he died fighting those. And he actually acknowledged... Wait, that thing's not supposed to slide there.
It's not.
He actually acknowledged the corpse lying there, but he didn't recognize that it was his own. And only now, after we've defeated him, he realizes, oh, wait, it is me who died. Similar to what we've seen with some other Dream Warriors.
yeah, it's sort of like when you realize you're dreaming and you wake up. When the Dream Warriors realize they're actually a ghost, they turn back into essence. which is good for us, obviously.
Is that what happens to our dream selves whenever we wake up?
We explode.
Kind of sad.
And this is your reward after trekking through all of Deep Nest. You get a nice, lovely bench to sit at around some very...
Except we're not sitting at the
we're not
bench,
doing
but
that,
we're just
you're
skipping it.
The developers were really nice and let us skip Deep Nest. I mean, Beastone.
So what would have happened when we sat on that bench is a nice little tune would have played, and we would have been captured and put into a spider's web in the middle of Beast's Den with a lot of devouts, which are these big, scary thingies, and other nice creatures around to play with.
Yes, chat, I didn't forget about
Unfortunately,
Midwife.
That's not happening. Sorry, I cut you off.
I'm sorry. I was just replying to chat. I thought you were done. Yes, chat, I am doing Midwife, okay? It would be faster if I grabbed this bench first. And we're still doing really well. There's not really a whole lot left to do. We've gone through this a lot faster than we did on our submission video dry run. Surprisingly. So, yeah, we can definitely afford to go talk to Midwife real quick and see what she has to say. Does she have dream nail dialogue?
She does.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I dream nail her without dying?
Yeah. I think it's the same. She says, get out of my head, get out of my head, get out of my head.
Okay.
Like we showed her an Amogus meme or something. So, and then if you have the Weaver song charm, she'll say, just because you've made some friends doesn't mean you're friends with me.
Woo! Deep Nest Grub.
It deserves to be saved by someone. Alright, so we'll take this bench, that way we can get back up really fast after going down to Deep Nest, because this whole drop is very, very long. This is quite a ways down here.
Yeah, I think she has 3 lines of dialogue and then a 4th if you've met Hornet. But you have to keep walking in and out of the room to get her to say them all.
Oh, heck.
But you can only, if you only want to talk to her once, I mean.
Yeah, that's fine. She's one of my favorite characters, because I relate to her. How do I dream nail her?
I think you can just dream nail her. Oh, I guess maybe you have to wait for her to...
Maybe she has to not be attacking.
Yeah. I thought you could. I like her because when you meet her for the first time, you really want to be told what's going on. But she just attacks you instead. Like, she gives you the tiniest bits of information, and then she freaking hits you. It's like Team Cherry's actively punishing you for trying to figure out what's going on in this game. So thanks, Team Cherry. So yeah, she basically, what does she say? She just says that Hornet was a gift to Deep Nest from Hollow Nest, which is part of the whole reason Hera became a dreamer, was because she would be able to gain a daughter. And Hornet, because she is the daughter of the Pale King and Hera, she's basically part god, and that makes her very powerful. Which is presumably part of why Hera wanted specifically the Pale King to engage in certain activities with her to make a baby. So
Yeah, and we're not going to get to see the final dialogue from Seer, unfortunately, because this is a true ending run. We're not doing every percentage. And Ascending Seer is actually really interesting. I didn't notice this until someone else pointed it out to me. But whenever she disappears, she has some lumaflies that fly out of the essence that she turns into, which has some implications about where all these lumaflies in the kingdom might come from. Wait, let me put this here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very strange. But it is also the kind of like the moth we see in the Dream World cutscene that we saw earlier. Kind of looks like a giant Lumafly to a degree. So yeah, now we've reached the White Palace, and basically as the Kingdom of Halonest began to fall apart and the infection began to run rampant, the Pale King decided to flee and hide himself away in a dream world where he put his entire palace. And we couldn't get into this dream world until we had the awakened dream nail. So, and in here we can see these things called King's Molds and Wings Molds, which are basically void constructs similar to our character, except they're made completely from inanimate armor and void. Whereas we are our shells are created from the Pale King and the White Lady's eggs that they created.
Also, if you want to talk about Collector, speaking of the King's Mold, since we're not going to get to see Collector, he's another void being that exists in the game, but he's kind of different, but he does look like a King's Mold. So he could be like a failed King's Mold.
Yeah,
he has a lot of lore.
It's very confusing. So the Collector looks like a King's Mold, but he doesn't wear any armor. His body's a bit more deformed or differently shaped. But his thing is that he's the one who's been capturing all of our grub buddies in jars. And he seems to be obsessed with them. He's in love with grubs. In fact, if you stand outside of the room where you fight him, you can hear him laughing, and you can hear a grub struggling, and you hear the grub gag at one point, which is very unsettling. But the Collector was locked away in a tower in the City of Tears, and the bug whose corpse is holding the key that he was probably locked away with says something like, "Too long spent together, we become as one," which implies that somehow by spending time with the Collector they merged together somehow, or had some sort of influence on one another, which is very weird. Void seems to have weird influences on other creatures, or is easily influenced by other creatures. What else? There are some vague implications that Lurien is involved in all of this, but it's very loose. It's just because in that tablet where Lurien talks about going to sleep, there's a picture of a jar on the tablet, which could imply that maybe he's related to all of this.
I did not know that part.
Yeah. So, one fun theory is that the Collector was putting creatures in jars to keep them safe, but that wouldn't explain why it became so obsessed with grubs. Because that doesn't seem to be what it was supposed to do. But we really don't know. There's also this drawing of a grub done in the style of the Vitruvian Man, which is that Mozart...
Da Vinci.
Da Vinci.
Oh my god.
I don't know human lore. I know Hollow Knight lore. The Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, but it's done as a grub. And it's like, what in the world? What was this guy into? And now we're on to the Path of Pain, so I guess I'll talk about the lore for that now. Unless there's some speedrunning stuff you need to talk about.
Nah, this is just normal Path of Pain.
Okay. So the Path of Pain is an offshoot of the White Palace that was added after the original game, or after the game initially came out. And this shows us this area starts off with a tablet that says that there's basically a sealed truth or something like that. Those who want to see the truth must endure the harshest punishments or something. And when we get to the end of this, we get a cutscene that is very interesting, and it gives us an insight into the relationship that the Pale King had with the Hollow Knight, which is, the chosen vessel, the vessel that was picked out of the entire lot of all the vessels that were born as the perfect Hollow Knight who could contain the Radiance. And we know that at some point, either from the very beginning or from something that happened, the Hollow Knight stopped being hollow. And the cutscene at the end of this Path of Pain, I think, shows that all of this comes from the fact that the Hollow Knight formed some sort of relationship with the Pale King, which tarnished it from being a pure hollow vessel.
And that's also why this memory is so well kept. The reason the Pale King really made this build such a harsh path to get there is because he really didn't want anybody to find out that the Hollow Knight was actually imperfect, because he sensed that might ruin his entire plan. And even though he knew that, he still followed through.
Yeah, it's a very, if you talk to some of the other lore researchers or people who really get into the lore, it's kind of a contested theory. Some people think that all of the vessels are tainted from the very beginning. It's completely impossible to make a purely empty vessel the way the Pale King wanted. I personally think it's a much more interesting story if he did succeed in what he wanted to do, but he ultimately failed because he couldn't disassociate the Hollow Knight as his own child. It really makes it feel more like a Greek tragedy or something like that, where a god who was all powerful ended up screwing up their own success. So, and that's sort of, this whole part of the game is sort of the crux of Hollow Knight's story.
Yeah, I agree. It's really beautiful if it's the Pale King building a relationship with his son that ruined everything. Irony.
Yep. As for why there are buzzsaws in the White Palace,
Heck.
that's a lore question that no one knows the answer to.
Protection. I don't know, maybe the Pale King just wanted to be safe in his palace and put them there later on. I doubt it, though. This thing seems to be built from the ground up with these in mind.
Flawless home protection system.
If you look at some of William Pellin's games he made before Hollow Knight, he put buzzsaws in all of them, so he really likes using buzzsaws as challenges. He played a little too much Meat Boy growing up, I guess, or when he was younger.
By the way, part of why I'm struggling so much with this is that a lot of these cycles are FPS dependent. And basically all the Path of Pain practice that I have at all is on patch 1.2.1. So these cycles are a little bit faster than I'm used to. So this is, I'm really struggling here. Like, I probably should have practiced this on current patch. Like, for example, the final saw that we have to pogo where I have to go underneath, that saw I can only get one pogo on this patch. Oh, heck. Hold on. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Because I can't get two pogos like I'm used to. I might need to stall a little.
Could have pogoed it again there, I think.
Okay.
why are there spikes on the top of the lifts in the city tiers? From a technical standpoint, I'm sure Team Cherry just didn't want to
Actually,
deal with that.
Actually, I do know the answer to that as a speedrunner. If you touch an elevator, whenever it's moving, it gives you elevator storage, and not having a way to deal with players landing on top of the elevator was kind of game breaking.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you can actually still get it if you grab the side of an elevator.
Yeah, I know that I remember William explaining to me how they got the sloped surface of one of the elevators in the transition rooms, how they got that to work, and it was really funny. He said that it's just a rectangle that they move its X and Y position as you walk across it to make it look like it's a slope.
Nice. Good job, Em.
That took a little bit.
We got there, though. And this is the cutscene that we've been talking about, where the Pale King looks at the Hollow Knight, and the Hollow Knight looks back, and it implies that the Hollow Knight, well, does have some feelings for his father. Some affection.
Isn't there a cut Dreamnail dialogue about that too?
Yes, there is. In the Hollow Knight fight, there's Dreamnail dialogue, and most of it is just the Radiance talking. But there is one dialogue from the Hollow Knight itself that just says "Father?" with a question mark, which basically implies that would, if the Hollow Knight has any kinds of thoughts at all, it would be about its father. So that's cut content, so it's not considered canon. But I think there's also plenty of evidence outside of that to argue that that's what's going on, because you also have the crib here in the White Palace, where you can see that they were treating the Hollow Knight like an actual child to some degree. So
We
But
will
it's
go see that too.
sorry.
We will go see that too.
Yeah. It's definitely all up for debate, though. There's not... Everything is just speculation, and Team Cherry won't confirm that kind of stuff ever, so... But yeah, this area is the workshop where the Pale King appeared to have done some experiments with Void. And we can see the King's Molds and the Wings Molds armor all around here. And we also see that the Pale King talks about how Void is has the power to deny time. And what's I think is being implied there is that he's talking about how by sealing the radiance inside of a Void creation, he's basically able to stall the Radiance's arrival indefinitely and place Halonest in an eternal stasis. And there's a lot of little chunks of dialogue that talk about that. So that was his ultimate plan with the Void, is to sort of indefinitely stall the Radiance's arrival.
Also, in that same lore tablet, we find out that the Pale King knows the Void is dangerous, but it is also powerful, and the King knows both of those. But even though it is very dangerous, he still tampers with it, which ultimately came back to bite him, as you can see him sitting in his throne right there, dead. Potentially killed by the Void itself.
Yeah, that's another theory, because there's little Void particles in this room that appear. And then this lore tablet next to him has a lot of interesting information. It's basically saying that the Pale King won't stand for there being another higher being in charge or being around. So he's basically cursing his entire prodigy, all of his children, as a way to establish his kingdom as everlasting. And it also mentions there in that tablet that he became like a beacon, which was able to expand the minds of the bugs in Halonest. So yeah, that's a very important lore tablet there.
Unrelated to lore, if you are wondering what I just did there too, that is called overcharming. Basically, if you have an open slot, you can just shove whatever charm in there until it breaks, and it'll work. The consequence is that you take double damage. So if I do get hit by something, I will take a bit more damage than normal. For example, the siblings that do 2 damage normally will do 4 damage to me right now.
With the Abyss, there are signs of some sort of ancient civilization that was here before the Pale King and Halonest. And this room is one of those examples with these faces. And if you dream nail in here, it says, "Our voices shall cry out again," or something like that, or "Our voices shall be heard again." This might be related to the snail shamans, but we don't know for sure. It could just be some random civilization or group of people that we're never gonna ever see again.
And this place is called Birthplace. This is apparently where we were actually born. You can see there's a lot more actual dead bodies of siblings here, and the ghosts are here themselves. And right there is an egg that I dream nailed. And whenever I can see my reflection in it, we assume that it's dream nailing yourself or your own reflection that brings back your memory of this. But I think there's a couple of other theories of what it could be too.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories as to what is really going on here. That could just be the egg you were born out of.
Or the void itself.
Or the void itself. Some people say this is a memory from the Pale King. I think it's a memory from our own minds, our character's mind. And it's when we see when the Hollow Knight was first chosen as a vessel. And we can see these other vessels are falling from the sky as we ascend. 2 theories being that the Pale King is casting them away because they're being deemed unworthy, or they're falling as they're trying to climb back up from the abyss. And this cutscene shows the Hollow Knight being chosen and the Pale King closing the door to the abyss and locking all of us away to be forgotten about. So, and then there was a lot of text explaining what the Pale King's goal was to create a creature that had no will to break, no mind to think, no voice to cry suffering, and that he has chosen the Hollow Knight as the vessel. And after seeing that cutscene, we get our King Soul gets turned into the Void Heart. Looks like the screen is incorrect on the stream.
Wait.
Okay.
Oh.
It's one of the,
I got caught off for a second. Okay. You guys didn't miss anything, don't worry. Are we good? I can wait until...
No, it's good. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
So. And now we're at the Black Egg Temple. Hornet is here.
I'm gonna do this cool trick though.
Oh yeah.
You call that Rocket Knight or Superman Knight, whatever you want.
Superman Knight, it's great. I wish the entire game had that animation.
Me too.
But yeah, Hornet will show up if you've done all the requirements for the extra endings.
Oh wait.
Oh, read World Sense.
Yes, very important lore tablet. I know the state of the world. I can see my percentage. Imagine being able to see your percentage. By the way, this run gets exactly 50%. So that's kind of cool.
I feel like this lore tablet makes absolutely no sense because it's clearly talking to the Hollow Knight. It's saying, "Vessel, though bound, you shall know the state of the world." But the Hollow Knight is locked up in this other room where he clearly can't ever read it because he's bound and he won't ever get out, right? That's the plan. So, why is that tablet there?
I think it's just a cheeky way to actually get the player to unlock viewing the percentage of the game that they've done. But it also, maybe there's reasons why you'd want the Hollow Knight to know what's going on in the world. I mean,
sure, but then why don't you just place it inside his room where he could actually read it?
Well, we get the sense of the world as long as we read it. We don't have to keep going back to it. You just automatically gain the sense, the ability.
Oh, so you're saying the Hollow Knight read it first before he was hung up there?
Yeah. Don't think about it too much.
But I feel like that makes no sense because he's supposed to be hollow and have no mind to think. And if you give him the ability to know about the state of the world, that defeats the purpose.
Well,
right?
If you teach him how to wield a nail and fight and use magic spells, then he also doesn't have a mind. The thing is that the game has to, you kind of have to accept that there's some inherent contradictions in the idea of a sword-wielding bug that has no mind whatsoever.
I guess the Pale King was just a big idiot.
He was a bug. Or a
well, I'd
worm.
say you have to kind of suspend your disbelief for some parts of the lore. Otherwise, it's not going to make any sense.
No, I totally get you. I'm just messing around.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool lore in that fight scene that we kind of just talked over. Halfway through the fight, the Hollow Knight starts stabbing itself, but potentially because it's trying to kill the infection or because it's trying to help you. And then eventually Hornet comes in and cracks its shell so that we can dream nail it. That way we can reach the heart of the infection, which is the Radiance. This giant moth-like creature that is now spamming swords and lasers at us.
Okay, the second hit was not intentional, the first one was.
So yeah, the Radiance is the light forgotten, as she is described in the Hunter's Journal. She's the thing that everyone's been seeing in their dreams, the one controlling everything. And you can debate as to whether she's truly evil or if this is just her lashing out, trying to break free from the prison the Pale King put her in. So there's some nuance to her character. She's not just a complete villain. You could argue that she's justified in her anger and rage at the world. But she views the Knight as her ancient enemy, probably because the Knight is a void being, and void doesn't really play nice with the higher beings, or with any kind of being, really. Just, although there are some who worship it. So. And because we have the Void Heart, the Void is now unified under our will, so we can see our fellow siblings coming up to help us fight and defeat the Radiance. So we're about to pull out a bunch of tentacles and start slapping her around.
By the way, timing is going to end whenever the screen is black. That
now
should be
we've defeated the Radiance, ripped her face open, and I guess she's gone for good. Until we do the Pantheon endings.
Yeah, GG. So that's a lot of lore that we just covered. Thank you guys so much for doing this with me, by the way. You guys should definitely follow both Taco and mossbag. I don't know if we have a commentator command for that. mossbag, one of the greatest lore YouTubers that Hollow Knight has. He's done a lot of research and a lot of work in the lore aspect of the game. And Taco is a speedrunner, and he also does a lot of cool YouTube content. So you guys should check both of them out.
You guys should also definitely check out Emray. She just did 2 3-hour runs back to back, which is absolutely crazy. And she also does a bunch of crazy stuff on her Twitch. So definitely go give her a follow.
Yeah, if you guys have anything else that you want to add to the end here.
So basically, now that the radiance has been destroyed, the black egg kind of just melts away and disappears. The night has joined the void and left its shell, so that's why it was cracked open. And now we're seeing what appear to be the siblings finally going to rest after the radiance has been defeated.